Right, boys, girls, Lego trains, attack helicopters, however you may identify. Alex is here once again to ask some questions, and I'm here to answer them, or try to anyway. So, what's new? Tell us what you've been up to, young man.
Well, Field Marshal, first of all, let me preface by saying it's a pleasure to see you.
And you, sir.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So since we last spoke, I have gotten up to 21 days of my carnivore diet weight loss journey. And as per your instructions, I have stuck religiously to a sensible protocol of reducing carbohydrates gradually by 10 grams a day. So I started at 300 grams of pasta, and now this evening I had 100 grams. So yeah,
very good.
9 more portions.
Very good. Very good. And for those that want to know why on earth is Alexander doing that, it is because we don't want to upset his microbiome by changing his diet too quickly. That's why. So we're weaning him off the and also it's to do with the addiction to carbs thing as well. We don't want to suddenly drop him on the deep end. So there's several reasons why. Those are them. I must say you're looking slimmer in the face, at least.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Yeah, people have been saying less puffy.
Yeah.
And the sort of horrible carb addict, I call them the Coca-Cola black eye bags, have gone as well. When I drink soft drinks, I look like death. But yeah, well, this brings me actually to potentially my first question. Sorry, I've done this totally the wrong way around. I'll just quickly finish telling you what I've been up to. So yeah, it's day 21 of my journey. I've been blessed to have gained 80 subscribers in just over a week.
Very nice.
Very, very positive and kind-hearted, very altruistic and compassionate engagement from the audience, who have been leaving really insightful comments designed to both encourage, support, and also guide me through some of the challenges I've been facing. I've been uploading daily videos, standing in my underwear, so that I can, over time, have the effect of people seeing my obese body shrink down and get closer and closer to a healthy weight and appearance. Weighing myself on the scales, and then just talking about what I'm eating and showing them how to cook it and so on. So it's nothing particularly original, apart from maybe my own unique brand of kind of awkward, eccentric humor, which I find has been a great tool to help me overcome the really intense discomfort of talking to a lens, which is a new one for me. I was really, really uncomfortable when I first started. I don't know, when did you first start talking into the camera with no one watching you? And yeah, it's really weird, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was about 5 years ago that I did my first YouTube video, and I can look back at my very early stuff now with cringe regarding the production quality. When I first started making videos, I didn't even have a microphone. I was using a laptop mic, and the sound was just... I mean, people think I've had trouble lately with some of my sound issues, which I have, but you want to hear some of, go back to the beginning. It's all on Odyssey if you want to see that stuff. And also, even to this day, I still have an autistic aversion to eyeballing the camera directly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like... I'm forcing myself right now. Yeah, so
well, thank you. Sorry, I
still look to the side of the thing. I don't eyeball it. But anyway, yes. And I just imagine that I'm talking to somebody rather than something.
Yeah. Well, I've had there were basically just a few moments where I intended to be as serious as humanly possible. And I kept on messing up the takes and stuttering. And then I just found sort of slipping into an involuntary psychosis in which I become Arnold Schwarzenegger or Matthew McConaughey, or sort of Ray Winston, being a kind of a Cockney geezer from a Guy Ritchie-esque movie. It helped to especially talk in front of the camera in my underwear. That was really hard, because what could one possibly say seriously, in Batman boxer shorts? So yeah, it's been really fun, and I've just been basically coming to getting to grips with the whole YouTube thing of editing the video and learning how to use the software, and just thinking about how I can evolve the whole channel and potentially reach a wider audience. But on the subject of audience, I just want to thank you very much for having me on last time, because that's essentially what is responsible for giving me the significant increase that I've had in the last week. So I really appreciate that. And your subscribers are of the highest quality. They're really lovely people. So
there you go, Meat Militia. You are of the highest order.
Appreciate it.
Those of you that haven't subbed to Alex, go and sub to Alex. Those are your orders. Make it so.
Thank you. Yeah, the channel is called Bring Yourself to Be Yourself.
Bring yourself to be yourself. There you go. And if you put an @, in front of that when you're in the YouTubes, you'll find it. Bring yourself to be yourself.
Yeah, it basically means become the person who you have been unable to be because of addiction. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about the carnivore community in the last 3 weeks, and I've been engaging a lot more as well, trying to make more effort to discover new channels. And I realized in doing so that for the last 2 years of prevaricating and putting off making the channel, I think I found it quite uncomfortable engaging with the community, because it reminded me that I wasn't doing what I promised I would do and what I was supposed to do. But now that I finally found my testicles, I find I'm really enjoying listening to everyone's story, especially like that French woman Claire had an incredible story, that just gave me so much perspective on things like strength and suffering and endurance, and then I've been getting into like training and bodybuilding channels as well, and then beginning to broaden my perspective and understanding on who the main categories of people are who find the carnivore community. And it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be 3 main types of people who discover carnivore: the addicted, the sick, and the fit, the professionally fit. Perhaps I'm missing a category, but I never took much interest in people who were into fitness, and my perception of you never really had much to do with fitness. But now that I think about it, you are technically I've heard you be described with multiple definitions, but are you not a kind of sports physiologist? Yes. Not just the physiologist, but physiology, how it relates to performance. Yeah. So I've been going down that rabbit hole for the last 2 weeks, watching a lot of your interviews with Jonathan over at Composition Consultant, who himself is very articulate and has real deep knowledge of like sports science and nutrition, which is quite remarkable considering he's only 27. But he speaks with the gravitas of someone far more mature. It's puts me to shame sometimes, but yeah, he's a real pleasure to watch. So yeah, it's been basically 21 days of me just trying to expose as much as is real about the experience. And yeah, sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's pathetic, sometimes it's all of the things that we would only ever maybe have the courage to expose in front of a professional therapist. And it's not contrived, and it wasn't intended. It just happened that way simply because I think, as I had anticipated, everything about myself I didn't really want to face and square up to is now glaring in my face because I'm not medicating in order to distract myself from it.
Very
so good. Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't say that I've felt more depressed or more consistently depressed over the last 3 weeks, because having the channel to focus on and spending so much time learning and trying to better myself, as well as doing more exercise and taking better care of myself in general, cleaning myself more, cleaning the flat more, making sure that I do the dishes and cook every day. That's helped to keep me on the straight and narrow. But there are moments when I've just been alone with my thoughts, being forced to face myself. And I have felt a level of anxiety and depression which I've never, ever felt before, probably because when I even get close to that level of intensity, I just go and get 2 or 3 cans of Coca-Cola. It is literally as simple as that. I can just eat and drink away anxiety. And now that I don't have that, I am being thrown around by the waves quite a lot at the moment. So just wanted to say, any of the people watching now who have subscribed to my channel, the most heartfelt and sincere thank you to you, because it really has been the case that during the moments in which I was so anxious and so depressed and so self-loathing that I just wanted to delete the whole channel and just do what I normally do, which is run away and hide. Reading people's comments, which are various approximations of "keep going, you can do this," that saved me. So I've had my first experience in my whole life of actually being kind of saved and supported by people and their words. I've never experienced that before. I just give up on things, and then I go to my friends and family just for like maybe a little bit of commiseration on the subject of my self-destruction. But I've never actually known what it feels like to want to quit, and then to just have so many people help me not to. So yeah, a sincere thanks. And they wouldn't be so lovely if you weren't lovely, Bart. So thanks to you as well.
Yes, I'm known for my loveliness, among other things. Yes. No, seriously though, if you have not subscribed to Alex's channel, studies show that not subscribing to Alex's channel is highly, highly correlated with late night visits from His Majesty Lord Edward Yellow, or King Edward Yellow of the Meat Militia, and also apparently of Carnivore Revolution. And he will bring with him his wetsuit with the bottom cut out, and he will also have with him his bucket of soapy frogs, if you don't subscribe. Don't you, Ted?
Why do I have a feeling that those soapy frogs are going to go directly for the rectum?
Well, Ted's that kind of bloke, aren't you, Ted? In the meantime, you can go back down there and twiddle the knobs some more. Good boy. Good boy. Ted's twiddling the knobs, as he should. Right.
Could I make a special request? Obviously, yes. not for today, but could I request that perhaps in our next meeting, could I enjoy the privilege of hearing the Invisible Penis song? I enjoyed listening to that so much the other day. I almost feel jealous. I want to have my own. You don't have to do it now, but I'm just saying, maybe as a treat in the future. It was my birthday yesterday, so maybe a belated birthday present.
Well then, that being the case. Happy birthday, Alex. This is a song about invisible peni. Invisible peni. That's the plural of penis, you know. This is an educational show. Invisible penis. Invisible penis. Everybody sing along. You all know the words. It goes dum dum da dum dum. Invisible, invisible, dum dum da dum dum. It's an invisible penis song. Dum dum da dum dum. No singing. Right, there you go. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Professor.
Not at all. Right, should we deal with some questions?
Speaking of that which is professorial,
yes.
Please help me welcome everyone to a new segment between Bart K and myself called Teaching an Idiot Science, or an Idiot Learn Science. I am an idiot, but I know I'm an idiot, which means I'm like the top of the Championship League. I'm not the Premiership, but I at least know that I'm ignorant, which is
the highest order. Yes, the highest order. Good.
Socrates said, the man who admits he knows nothing is the smartest man in Athens. So
yes,
I'm considering how little I know, I should be in fucking Mensa. Okay.
You don't dick about fuck.
So look, as the last 4 years have gone by, I've made a note of these questions, and I've never had the opportunity to ask the master himself. So Bart K, tell me. And a disclaimer. I understand that you're going to say things from opinion, inference, and hard science. So just assume that whatever Bart's answer is falls into that right category, because I don't want to present every question as implying that there is a real scientific data to underpin the answer. So, okay, question number one. So, on the multiple occasions I have roasted large joints of beef and pork and duck and so on in the oven, and a lot of liquid fat renders, I have done what most people in the carnivore community do. I put it into a jar, and I reserve it for frying. And in some cases, I make mayonnaise with it. And I came across that idea from Amber Hearns, or Amber O'Hearns. She had like a blog from like 2009 where she saved up all her bacon grease and made a kind of carnivore mayonnaise with it. So I did that for the first time the other day. But as I was eating my duck fat carnivore mayonnaise and dipping my chicken into it, it suddenly occurred to me that maybe eating liquid rendered fat, even saturated fat, that had been taken up to, 210, 220, 230 Celsius roasting temperatures, maybe that wasn't good. So so my question is do you think it's just a good idea to throw the fat away and only eat the fat that's still attached to the meat itself, which has gone slightly gelatinous, and then have additional fat from things like butter or animal sources of fat which have never gone up to those temperatures?
Right, yeah. The issue with fat and temperature is largely for mono and polyunsaturates, because of their inherent susceptibility to being altered by heat, sometimes by pressure, other such things. Saturated fat is much, much more stable, much more resistant to such rancidity style issues. The thing I would take my hint from is I would look at the rendered fat for colour. The lighter it is, the better. It's going to be probably straw coloured more than it's going to be white. But if it's like anything much darker than straw coloured, if it's going brown or heading towards the almost chocolatey sort of colour, probably get rid of that at that stage. But otherwise, I think as part of your program, there's no real issue with that, I don't think.
Yeah, because I did wonder, because of the higher content of linoleic acid in pig fat and duck fat, I thought maybe, that would be more prone to oxidation than ghee and tallow.
Sure, yeah. And, the stuff that's going to go and drag it towards the brown end, the spoiled end, if you like, are going to be the constituents of that animal fat that's not saturated. The saturated stuff is pretty damn stable. So, yeah, that's the approach I'd take. I'd use a colour as a guide.
Yeah, because I have been keeping my pig fat, and it does go pretty brown because I roast belly in the oven at like 180, 190. Okay, so now I know what to do because I have no shortage of fat. I've started buying jars of really high quality ghee, so I'll use the ghee moving forward.
Cool.
Okie dokie. MSG.
Yeah.
Now, I came across a factoid the other day which said that MSG crystals technically form naturally in things like Parmesan cheese. The little crystals in Parmesan are technically MSG, or MSG's constituent of the crystal. Mm-hmm. Is MSG toxic? Is that a scientific statement by your standards, or are there just inferences which would lead you to tell people to err on the side of caution and just keep away from it?
Yeah, there are those people who will react very strongly and very negatively, very immediately to MSG. Absolutely, I'm one of those myself. It causes tachycardia, a fast heart rate. It causes heart flutters for me, as in the rhythm starts going off. It causes immediate and quite immense anxiety issues for me. Sweating as well. It seems to be something that my body is very clear I should stay away from personally. Others eat MSG like it's going out of fashion without any apparent issues. If nothing else, MSG will alter your satiety signaling in such a way as to cause you to be more likely to overeat. And it's also quite addiction forming, I think. So,
how was MSG invented? How was it discovered by accident, or is it naturally occurring?
It does occur naturally in various foods, and it's been manufactured artificially, if you like, for a very, very long time and used as a flavor enhancer and as a means of getting people to eat more and more and more of the stuff. I think it was actually the Asians in some of the Asian countries anyway that first started using it, and the big corporations clicked onto what they were doing in terms of that and took it to the nth degree, of course, and put in far more MSG than the original Asian recipes would have called for. And not only does this actually improve the flavor and make it tasty, it also seems to interfere with satiety signaling, and that's great if you want to sell more junk food to people. So that's kind of where it comes from. So it is a naturally occurring thing, but the concentrations that it's added to savory junk food are very, very high. Very, very high concentrations that probably would cause a problem for many people. And if it doesn't, then you're still going to be subject to the overeating thing probably. So I'd avoid it. Yeah, if that's at all possible.
And lastly, does the MS part of MSG monosodium imply that it's just pure sodium and there are no bonds with any other electrolytes? It's just
it's a glutamate. That's the G part. Which is
okay. So the idiot is asking now, what's a glutamate when that's at home?
Well, glutamate is another naturally occurring substance that you'll find in foods. It's also found in your metabolic pathways quite normally as an ion in the ionic form, as glutamate, or sometimes it's called glutamic acid. It's actually not that, because at physiological pH it's fully dissociated to glutamate. And what's really being done by way of anything artificial is it's being partnered up with sodium in such a way that it has those effects on, it has a powerful effect on flavor, stronger than salt does by itself and far stronger than glutamate would do in its normal, natural, occurring form. And it seems to be also somehow that MSG in some way is having an effect on satiety signaling more than either of those things by themselves would. So you've got a high concentration of both of those things going in.
Is it technically enhancing flavor, or is it making the receptors in our mouth and nose? Is it boosting the signal of flavor delivery to the nose, essentially?
I'm not sure of the exact mechanics on how it has the perceived effect of flavor enhancement. I think it's probably a rich tapestry of a number of things working together synergistically to achieve that end. That's something I'd have to look up if I was going to. Yeah.
Thank you, Field Marshal. Okay. Much bigger, significant, consequential question now. So look, learning about the carnivore diet by proxy has exposed me to the term metabolic disease. I didn't know what metabolic syndrome was. I didn't know that my obesity had a fancy schmancy name until I was interested in this community. I can understand, to use your word a minute ago, the simple layman's terms mechanics of how Randall cycle causes elevated blood glucose, causes systemic inflammation, causes cellular degeneration of the arterial wall, causes heart disease, calcification. I get all that.
Yeah.
And I also get the even simpler metabolic disease type 2 diabetes, like blood glucose going up and up and up over time and developing more insulin resistance, chronically activated Randall cycle. I get that. So my question now is that cancer seems to be, of the three metabolic diseases, the least predictable and the more inexplicable. As confident as you are that if one eats a carnivore diet and all other things being equal, not drinking, not smoking, not having continued stress phenomena in one's life, poor sleep, etc. Are you as are you as confident at suggesting, inferring, asserting, claiming, however you frame it, that one is as protected from the potential for cancer as one is the other two metabolic diseases?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that I'm loath to either use likelihood or risk or any of those kind of things because there are simply no studies that are cause and effect that can back that up. Working from within the model that suggests, demands, if you like, that cancer is largely metabolic and not actually as genetic as a lot of people think it is. And that the diet does play a big role in inflammation. Absolutely, that we do know. We can track inflammation as that relates to dietary intervention, short, medium term, and we do find that there are clear effects of certain things in terms of inflammation or anti-inflammatory effect. Under the parsimonious assumption that cancer is underpinned by inflammation, and I believe it is, without being able to prove that, then that would suggest that there would be some benefit in being as minimally inflamed as is possible throughout the lifespan. That would never guarantee anybody of any outcome or not, but I think that it would be a prudent move to take that seriously.
Yeah, because I know that epigeneticists and oncologists, they identified the most important risk factor in developing cancer as age. But the way I see that is that the ages at which the majority of people who develop cancer do are the ages at which the consequences of multiple decades of inflammation caused by blood glucose problems come into fruition. So from my perspective, it's understandable that the elderly would be the predominant demographic for developing cancer, because it takes 30, 40 years. But yeah,
the particular relationship there is collinearity is what we're talking about. It's not the age itself that is the risk. It's the inflammation over years that seems to be the risk. Now, you absolutely can suffer cancer as a young person? Absolutely, you can have cancer without being inflamed, because there are forms of cancer that don't seem to be as highly inflammatory. There are forms of cancer that are more clearly genetic in their underpinnings. You bet. Look, if we had all the answers about cancer, we would have sorted cancer out by now, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I'm sure you know. I just want to confirm for your audience. I came across probably the most fascinating thing I've ever learned about cancer the other day, because a friend of mine is an epigeneticist, and he runs a research team at Bristol University, and what they're studying is fascinating. Apparently, there are no recorded cases, or I don't want to misquote him. Let's just say to be err on the side of caution and be conservative. The one group in the world who have the lowest amount of cancer, the lowest rate of cancer, is people who suffer from the very rare disease of aphasia, the disease that causes rapid premature aging. So when 14-year-old girls look like 85-year-old geriatric grandmothers, there's something about that disease that alters the DNA of human beings that doesn't permit the proliferation of cancerous cells in the body. So his research team is looking into trying to find a way to identify what the chemical changes are, or what the DNA changes are caused by the disease, so that maybe they can emulate it somehow chemically and with a pharmaceutical. But in the multiple conversations about cancer we've had, he told me that some cancers are actually linked causally to viruses. So there are certain viruses you can get in your youth, and then by the time you arrive in the senescence of your existence, the virus can trigger cancer, can activate certain cancers. Like apparently herpes is connected to cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say then that cancer doesn't fall into the same remit as type 2 diabetes and heart disease in terms of the carnivore diet and safeguarding the individual from disease? There's yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing with cancer is that cancer is an umbrella term for a dizzying array of different forms of cellular proliferation dysfunction. And there are many different sorts, many different tissues that can be affected in many different ways. There are many different triggers and control knobs. And, the viral one's another one. So you've got inflammation, you've got specific viral pathogenesis, you've got a genetic input into it as well. Yeah, so it's one of those things that I don't think we'll get necessarily the ultimate answers to all of this in our lifetime or those of the next few generations beyond us, I would say. There is still a lot to be learned about cancer.
Well, I think the zoological clue is or indicator is in the fact that animals eating their species appropriate diet, living in ideal habitats, they get cancer. So thank you. That was really interesting. Okay. We touched on this yesterday, though not in the unrecorded part of our conversation, so I just wanted to bring it up again. Sorry to make you repeat yourself. Would you care to share any surmise or hypothesis on why nitrates and nitrites are best avoided? So bacon and charcuterie. Nitrite. Sorry to go back to salt again.
Yeah, it seems to be that there may be a possibility of a connection with various health complaints, including cancer. There is no hard evidence on that. My way of thinking about it is that nitrates and nitrites, which are usually used as preservatives, are not actually necessary. you involve yourself in no increased risk of anything by eliminating them as far as possible from your diet. And while any connection with the incidence of any particular disease process is not proven, if there is a non-zero risk in fact, then you've improved that situation without exposing yourself to any side effect risks. There are no risks to not consuming nitrite and nitrate.
Mm-hmm.
At the very light end of it, and I say light because it might seem light at the time, but actually it's very serious, is that nitrates and nitrites can lead directly to inflammatory and immune responses, it seems, in some.
Okay.
And that in and of itself could predispose you to other disease process.
So I was wrong then. I've been assuming, my own assumption and surmise for the last couple of years was that nitrite salts were a problem because they had the potential to take one's electrolytes out of balance. I thought that it was just such an intense form of sodium.
Sure. I mean, that is possible as well. However, assuming that all else is equal and your kidneys are functioning the way they should, and you have sufficient electrolyte in your diet, then that will be a managed situation. So your electrolytes will tend to go off or out of control, out of range, high or low, when there is some systemic failure of the kidneys, the intakes, your insulinogenic action during a day, those kind of things.
Yeah, that was something I learned the other day. Or was it today? And it was, it was your takedown of the Cro-Magnon monobrow lunatic from. I can't figure out whether or not he's from Portugal or Italy. It's a sort of a weird blend. It's a sort of, he's Portuguese, is he? Yeah, because I have known a lot of Portuguese to be very hairy, so that
We hate the hobbitses, we do. Nasty, thieving, lying hobbitses. Nah, we hate them.
Sorry.
He does combine sort of Gollum-esque qualities with sort of he's sort of like he shouts like a kind of a loud 1950s Italian communist at on the top of the factory, kind of addressing the workers.
Hey, but really fuck you! Hey, fuck you!
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, he really is unhinged.
Yes. But that's his thing, of course. I guess that's his attempt at getting notoriety, attempt at getting some attention. Well, he got some attention. However, if he ever wants to be taken seriously by anybody online ever again, I think he's blown that. I mean, play acting is one thing, and he's clearly doing a bit of that. But there are lines that you don't cross that I think, eat into both your credibility and also your status as a reasonable human being as well. Like, for example, you don't take pot shots at somebody's partner who's got nothing to do with it. You don't do that.
Yeah, well, you use the operative word, which was child, and children. A lot of children don't realise that though the internet is sort of smoke and mirrors, and it's a sort of it's a duality, isn't it? It's sort of simultaneously the best and the worst thing, the most serious and the most frivolous thing ever invented. But that within that duality, there are serious people doing serious things with a serious background. So I think he's clearly pathological, clearly narcissistic, and like most narcissists, he's looking at you through the lens of what he sees. He's not seeing the real you. He's just seeing some half-baked notion inside him.
That's added to, I really genuinely believe that actually that boy would struggle to reach three figures on an IQ test. I really do. I don't think he's putting the stupid on as an act. I think he is as stupid as he makes himself out to be. So anyway, you were going to ask me something about that.
Yeah, but his Dunning-Kruger was far more interesting. Yes. Okay. This last sort of significant question now. This pertains to, I suppose, politics and industry, really. Mm-hmm. I joined the carnivore community, or I took an interest in it 4 years ago, and I've seen it grow, and I've seen it become gradually more compelling and thus more legitimate as the collective anecdotal data grows and more and more popularized platforms give credence to to our assertion that this is the species appropriate diet. However, big massive entities like the World Health Organization are still publicizing and propagandizing that people should stay away from saturated fat and instead have, canola oil, mm-hmm. fry all of their foods in rapeseed oil. Yeah. So my question is, and this is very broad, so please feel free to answer as broadly as you desire. Mm-hmm. What would it take, in your opinion, for the scientific community to finally acknowledge the compelling inferences that our species is carnivorous, mm-hmm. to begin the process of dismantling the false narratives on meat consumption and the so-called risk of heart disease? I guess what that boils down to is when do you think if I can use the word we as well, because I'm now part of it, when do you think, actually no, I'm not going to, when do you think your collective efforts are going to start seeing dividends on the global scale in terms of politics, governments, World Health Organization, WEF, and so on?
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, in terms of changing the world, each one of us has a sphere of influence such that is, to whatever level that is. Some people's sphere of influence is fixed, and those people can use that sphere of influence in a way as to change the minds of as many people as that they can, to change someone's personal belief structure. My sphere of influence expands painfully slowly still, but it does expand. Every month I have new subscribers, new people who have come on board. I even have old detractors now coming across to the dark side and apologizing, thanking me and telling me I was right all along, like I didn't fucking know that already. So that's happening. So, I am winning over minds of individual people, and those people will use their sphere of influence to change as many minds as many people will listen to them. So it becomes a groundswell. It becomes one of these rolling snowball situations. I mean, there are people like Ken Berry, for example, who has over 2 million subscribers. So he's had an impact, and all of those 2 million people will change the minds of between 0 and however many people's minds over the next whatever period of time. So changing the minds, the hearts and minds of people, individual people, private individuals, that's easy. That's a process that just takes as much time as it takes to get enough momentum, to have enough of us that it becomes a fait accompli. We become an unstoppable force. The unstoppable force meets an immovable object from time to time. The immovable object is these self-claimed authorities, these organizations like the one you named, and the ADA and the Wheat Growers Association, and all of those that are all in bed with each other, frankly. And eventually, when there are enough people on our side of the force, in alignment and right think, and have got this sorted out, these immovable objects, or immutable objects more than immovable, they're more immutable. They will simply be crushed. They will be torn asunder. They will be swept aside. They will be disestablished. eventually, because their activities have been and continue to be criminal, and as such, the only way of dealing with a criminal organisation is to dismantle it completely. Disbar it from making public statements, break down its memberships, remove its credentialing systems, seize its assets, the whole works. That's the only way of dealing with any criminal organisation, is to dismantle it completely.
Mm-hmm. Over the years, though there's clearly evidence that there have been multiple nefarious dealings that amount to conspiracy to steer the public in the direction of carbohydrates away from saturated fat.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple examples of long since proven corruption. In the name of getting my message across effectively, I always opt to not describe it in terms of conspiracy, but rather interests aligning. And I see it as a question of once the interests of the public can no longer be framed to be in alignment with what these companies have to offer, both in terms of food and in medical and health advice.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the table will turn. So,
Also, I think the one thing I forgot to say is that the other thing that seriously needs to change before the world will change is the way in which we both fund and undertake science needs a look at. And I would suggest it needs really a complete change.
Yeah, because nutritional science seems to be it seems to be an entirely unique area of science where there seems to be much more of a vacuum of hard data in the literature, and that vacuum is filled with a level of charlatanry that almost no other form of science, whether it's aeronautical engineering, mathematics, physics, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Of all of the examples of the different spheres of science where politics and perhaps eccentric endeavors in certain universities and with certain groups to maybe put investment into sort of quack ideas. But there are examples, but it seems that the most corrupt, the most the form of science with the most gaping hole of incontrovertible data is nutritional science, and that's why you can make a career convincing people that your charlatanry is science. And I think, and this is just my opinion, I don't know what your opinion on the man is, so I don't want to rope you into this. So disclaimer, this is my objection and not Bart's. But I think, there are the wild, big mouth charlatans, like the sort of, what's that vegan guy called who looks glasses, bald head, very scrawny?
Not Dr. Greger.
Effeminate. Dr. Greger, yeah, they're the sort of the clownish caricature, obvious types like him. But then there are the more dangerous ones are the ones which have the scientific lexicon, who speak in a much more erudite and compelling way. And I think people like Tim Spector are a classic example of that, because Tim Spector has convinced so many people in the world of bodybuilding training who are really into nutrition that there is this fixed, scientifically established idea called, diversity of eating, which has to occur in order to feed and maintain this diverse gut microbiome. Every time I go to the gym, I hear someone mentioning Tim Spector. Oh, you've got to check out Tim Spector. He's very, very popular in the southwest of England where I live. I actually did a market last year, and I was talking about my intention to go on the carnivore diet. And a guy who's really good friends with Tim Spector kind of gave me a where he thought he was giving me a kind of a dressing down. My friend Tim Spector says that the carnivore diet is one of the most dangerous things you do. There are all of these bacteria in the gut, and if they're not fed, then certain hormonal functions aren't possible. All of this bollocks. And I quoted you with my retort, and I said, look, whatever Tim Spector says is just conjecture. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do the microbiome. And I said to this guy, perhaps when you see Tim, let him know that that you met someone whose counter position is that he's basically looking at it totally the wrong way around. There's the narrative seems to be that all of these diverse foods that we have to eat are there to serve some necessary function of all of these bacteria, when in fact the bacteria there are merely there to serve the digestion of whatever food or food groups we have access to or have had access to over the millennia of being Homo sapiens sapiens. So, the bacteria whose job it is to break down starch and sugar and fiber, if you're not eating starch, sugar, and fiber, my logic is that you don't need them anymore. Not that they are there because they've always been there and they serve some great cellular hormonal function for the body, which has to be maintained. But Spector has made a career out of convincing kind of gym bros that you have to have sourdough bread, you have to have brown rice, you have to have this diversity. And he's the kind of charlatan ascribed far too much credibility whom I loathe the most, because he gets away with it. He gets away with it.
I would suggest to anybody that what you do with characters like that is you follow the money. Look at where they are funded, where their funding comes from. And if you've got enough nous and enough skill to follow somebody's funding in that way, that's a good thing. The other thing that it's always good to have is an open mind, but an open mind which is trained in how to critically interpret inputs and to judge the validity, veracity, correctness, and applicability of any one given individual's thoughts on any given topic. You should never take the word of anybody as gospel without getting the skills. If you haven't currently got the skills, like most people don't have the skills to critically assess this stuff, then my suggestion is that you start today and you start getting those skills. A great place to start getting such skills on critical thinking is my fine YouTube offerings, of course. So if you haven't already been doing that, get into it. I've got many fine channels. Most of them have something to do with science, at least some of the time. There's also a bit of entertainment, a bit of comedy, and some offensive stuff there, because I've found that works best for the algorithm on YouTube. People don't seem to actually want to be educated, unless that's by subterfuge. What they actually want is to be amused, titillated in some way, or indeed offended. That's how you get clicks.
Well, can we append entertainment to educated, entertained? That's what people want to be. They want to be edutained.
Yes, edutained or entertained. They want to be tainted, certainly. Much like Ted. Ted's had a tainting, haven't you, Ted? Ted, you're right down there, son. He's twiddling the knobs furiously as Ted. Still, good boy, Ted. Good boy. Come up and say goodbye to Alex.
I hope you don't mind my plagiarism, but I was thinking about bringing my own mascot onto my channel, a little pig called Crispy Bacon.
Crispy Bacon, like it.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Ted and I have to rush off and twiddle some more knobs and do some talking to folks and stuff and things. Thank you for your time. Once again, Alex, thanks for the questions. Interesting stuff. And I hope that my answers were able to shed some kind of light, or at least to point in a direction where people might start looking for more light on various topics. Many of the questions today are not areas of my expertise. I'm not claiming expertise in things like cancer or any of that kind of stuff, but there are things that we can certainly talk about with some reasonable degree of sense. Hope hopefully you've found it to be reasonably sensible and of some value. Join me next time when probably someone will be wrong on the interwebs, because it doesn't look like slowing down anytime soon, does it, Ted?
Thanks, Bart.
All right, ciao.
Get it.
Ciao.